From LPM,
Louisville Public Media.
Support comes from Vision Zero. On foot or behind the wheel, safety is a shared responsibility. And Vision Zero Louisville believes 0 roadway fatalities is the only acceptable amount. Their mission is to create safe roads by design, engineering solutions, and education. More information at visionzerolouisville.org.
Hi, I'm Richard Karn, and you may have seen me on TV talking about the world's #1 expandable garden hose. Well, the brand new Pocket Hose Copperhead with Pocket Pivot is here, and it's a total game changer. Old-fashioned hoses get kinks and creases at the spigot, but the Copperhead's Pocket Pivot swivels 360 degrees for full water flow and freedom to water with ease all around your home. When you're all done, this rust-proof anti-burst hose shrinks back down to pocket size for effortless handling and tidy storage. Plus, your super light and ultra-durable Pocket Hose Copperhead is backed with a 10-year warranty. What could be better than that? I'll tell you what, an exciting exclusive offer just for you. For a limited time, you can get a free Pocket Pivot and their 10-pattern sprayer with the purchase of any size Copperhead hose. Just text WATER to 64,000. That's WATER to 64,000 for your 2 free gifts with purchase. WATER to 64,000.
By texting 64,000, you agree to receive recurring automated marketing messages from Pocket Hose. Message and data rates may apply. No purchase required. Terms apply. Available at pockethose.com/terms.
Welcome to On Track. I'm Aisha Jaffer. Kenya Young is the new president and CEO of Louisville Public Media. And while she may be new to LPM, she brings almost 2 decades of public media experience. Her most recent work was at New York Public Radio, where she was a senior vice president. Before that, Kenya served a 15-year stint at NPR, where she had many roles and worked on flagship shows like Morning Edition and Up First. Kenya is with us today to talk about her goals for public media in Louisville, how she envisions LPM's role in the community, and the current challenges facing public media at large. Kenya, welcome to Louisville and welcome to On Track.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
So glad to have you. You're coming to Louisville from some of the biggest names in public media, NPR, WNYC, and of course, some of the biggest cities too, like New York, as we talked about, DC and LA. What was it about Louisville and this point in your career that made you say yes to leading LPM?
Absolutely. It's funny. I've been saying I'm going to get my T-shirt and my tagline is going to be #LA, DC, New York, ... Louisville. And I feel like that's my story to tell. And it's a great story to tell. I was really, as I spoke with the recruitment team and the board and some of the staff members, what I saw here in Louisville, and it's become even more apparent as I've been here and stepped into the community and really chatted with both listeners, supporters, community leaders across the board in all corners of the community. This is a place that I think is really hungry for fact-based reporting that we are currently doing, but also a place where my experience from some of the other organizations and my national experience, we can really be thinking about how we are elevating where that reporting is going, how we are getting it out to more ears, how we are making it more accessible for all audiences. I think there's a deep hunger both in this community and from the board and the staff to make sure that we are covering all the stories that we need to cover. I am very big about putting on the voices that aren't normally heard, that getting into the communities that are not normally gotten into, and really telling the stories. I believe that there is more than one way to tell a news story, and Louisville is a bit of a microcosm of what's happening in the country, whether it's in the news, whether it's in people's lives, whether it's New York, Miami, Chicago, LA. We are experiencing the same things here in Louisville, and to be able to tell those stories the way that we are already telling. I mean, that was some of the appeal too, right? There's already great content happening here. There's great work being done here, award-winning journalists, the music, the classical, the live events. So I think what I saw here was already this pool of amazing content, amazing storytelling, the podcast that we have done and are currently doing, the community shows, On Track, right? Like there is this portfolio that is already in place. So I didn't have to come in and make a whole bunch of new stuff, right? It's already here and it's really great. It's really thinking about what more we can do with it and how accessible we can make it. And that was really attractive to me. That's what I've done most of my career. And it felt like it was the time to come do that here in Louisville.
Is there something also personally that drew you to the city as you explored it before you came here?
So I didn't know much about Louisville before I came here. And so I had to do a little research and tag. In fact, my dad lives in Indianapolis. And when I was looking up when I was looking up the airlines and where is coming, and I called my dad, I said, "Did you know you're only 2 hours away from me when I'm there?" He was like, "I did know that, but you did." I was like, "I absolutely did not know that." And that's been a nice extra perk to be able to go see my dad from time to time. And he's come down a couple times too. So it really has been an interesting kind of geographical, but also just historical lesson for me. This is all brand new to me. I did not know much about, even when it comes down to the Derby, and I listened to the On Track Derby episode, I knew that there was a horse race out here, and I knew that we had the Kentucky Derby. I did not know all that was involved with it. And to be able to watch it from I wasn't here yet. I started May 19th. So to be able to watch it from afar, but still be invested and being like, what's my life going to be like in a year at the next Derby was so exciting because it was just, I do think Louisville is a place that, quite honestly, in the coastal places, LA, New York, people might not know much about Louisville and know not much about us besides being in Kentucky. I like to say, actually, it's got the feel of maybe Asheville or Austin without having the kind of reputation, tourist reputation of Asheville and Austin just yet. And some people tell me to keep that a secret. We don't quite want that just yet. But it is that kind of feel and that kind of excitement. It's a foodie town. It's an arts and culture town. And I think a lot of people don't know that coming in. So it has been a great space of learning, discovery, exploration. I did Focus Louisville with the Leadership Louisville Center this past weekend. And both me being the newest person there and the person on the other side of the room when we made the circle being a lifetime from here native, both of us learned so much about the city. We were in parts of the community that maybe a lot of people don't go, and we really embedded in there and really saw a lot of things. And so I'm learning and discovering, but I will say what I discovered in the very first conversations and what intrigued me to keep having the conversations and what just keeps kind of snowballing and becoming even more impactful to me is that there is a pride. There is a Louisville pride that I quite honestly haven't seen in the big urban city centers that I live. There is a space in which people love living in Louisville. I remember when I was here for my first trip and I called my husband and I said, I have found 3 groups of people. The people who are from here and have always lived their life here. The people who were from here moved away to Chicago and Charlotte and Cincinnati and LA or what have you, and intentionally moved back to Louisville to raise their families or for whatever reason. And those who came here for, I'm just going to try it for 2 or 3 years. And they've been here 18, 20 years now, right? Like there's these 3 buckets of people. And across the board, in those 3 buckets, everyone loves living here. Some of that is about this sense of community, but there is a level of civil engagement and there is a level of pride here that I've not seen anywhere before or experienced. And I just told my parents last night, like they were asking about the job and I said, yeah, I like the job, but I love Louisville. And already 4 weeks in, that has become what I saw in the very beginning, what sparked those conversations and how had me continue those conversations, I'm really feeling and embodying now.
I love that you're diving in and exploring. It's very cool to hear that. And there's a lot more yet to come, I'm sure. And, like we talked about, we did talk about how your career has been vast in public radio. You've been in this for a while. How have you seen, public radio being so local, and we're talking about this local focus and local love. How have you seen the role of public radio change over the course of your tenure so far?
That's a great question. Starting my career well, I should say this career. This is a third career for me. But starting my journalism and media career at NPR on a talk show similar to this, and being on the news magazine shows all throughout the career and working in the newsroom at the national level, what we've really tried to see, and when I was running Morning Edition, one of the things I always talked about was how the national news is playing out in people's lives. And it's really the same thread on the local side, right? We want to be able to share on the national side. We want to be able to make sure that we are speaking to the country in a way that makes sense and in a way that they can appreciate that, right, the national news. And if we're talking to politicians, sometimes there was the feedback we got that we're too coastal at NPR and we only talk to the DC or the LA side of things. But on the local side as well, we've got our listeners and our audience that's seeing this news play out at the national level, but it affects every single person one way or another. And so I always like to think about from the station side. And when I worked with stations in my last role at NPR, I worked with which Louisville Public Media happens to be a part of, the collaborative journalism unit. And I ran that and was managing it in the newsroom. And what I saw so much is that every station is really talking about the same thing. We're just talking about it in different rooms. And so how do we start to talk about it collectively? And how do we start to think about less about what the stations are doing and what NPR is doing and more about what our audience needs from us? And I think that really spans across, whether you're thinking nationally, whether I'm in New York or whether I'm here, really thinking about our audience needs, what's unmet, what are the gaps, and how we can fill that. And I think that public media has had to grow with that because for a very long time, and some people might still say that we're doing this or some stations are doing this, we often just focus on what we do. And we do it really well. We're very good at broadcast news. We're very good at telling stories. We have excellent interviewers in Michelle Martin and Steve Inskeep and Elsa Chang across the board, right? And so we had a right to kind of be a bit boastful about how good we are at what we did, right? That's what people came to us for. At NPR, we used to call it the driveway moments, where you pull into your driveway and you're in the middle of the interview and you can't get out of the car yet because you just have to wait and hear the end of the interview. We're very good at that. And there's something to that. But if that's not serving the audience, if we're not listening, if we're not looking at data, if we're not in the community, if we're not listening to what people need, what does that serve to just be very good at something that you do? So we've had to have a sea change of how do we match? We can be both and. It's not an either or. But how do we match doing that and being there for community and serving the community's needs? How are we making sure that we are covering the stories that really matter to our audience? How are we making sure we are in the areas where other news organizations are not going? And I think we still have a ways to go. We've gotten better at that, but that should be public media's role. And we need to shift and make sure that we are less news and entertainment and interview focused and more audience focused. And those two can merge together and marry so that both can happen.
Community and collaborative, it sounds like.
That's right. That's right.
So this is exciting for us. You're the first woman and the first Black leader at LPM, a meaningful first, really, for this organization. How did that factor in, I'm curious, into your decision, if at all, to take the job? And how does it shape your approach to leadership here?
It's interesting. I like to think that my resume over the past almost 20 years is what makes me who I am, right? I have led large teams. I have transformed media organizations and media teams. I am public media through and through. It is in my DNA. It is my metabolism. And I also love leading teams. I love shepherding a team into the next level of who we can be. So it just happens to be with that. I am also a woman. I am a working mom, and I am a Black woman. And I'm a Black woman raising 3 Black boys in this country, right? All of that adds to the experience of how I show up at the table. I am a public media leader with these extra added benefits is how I like to look at it. And so my lens at the table comes through that lived experience. So when I'm thinking back to when I was running Morning Edition and the George Floyd happened and there were protests across the country, and Noelle King and I were on the phone late night. I just called her and I said, what are we going to do? She was a Morning Edition host at that time. And we went back and forth, and then we hung up. We hadn't had an answer yet, and we hung up and we called back again. And I said, I really want to send you. I want to send you to Minnesota, and I need for you to think about, yes, covering the news and seeing what's happening there, but more important, thinking about how we are going to tell this story. And what I want is for people to understand what they are seeing on the ground. I want people to be able to, if you have questions and you're not from here, why is this happening? Why are buildings burning? Why, what is the outrage about in a more authentic way? And so in the end, I just ended up saying, Noelle, I just want you to open up the mic and let people breathe. And let's see what comes of that. I'm not really sending you. I don't want you to go cover the protests. I don't want you to be on the streets. We've got breaking news reporters for that. I really just want us to figure out where we need to go, what buildings we need to be in, whose homes we need to be in, and just open the mic. And that's what we did. And it was some of the best reporting I think we've done on Morning Edition in an unfortunate, tragic situation and trauma-filled community at that moment. But that came from being who I am. That came from not just being a leader, not just someone who runs a show, but someone who lives an experience and goes home and is watching the news myself and thinking and feeling certain things, and wanting our position to be, how do we allow people to feel and to think and to breathe on our air in order to tell a story. And so I say all that to say, and give that example, to say that I lead the way, quite honestly, I think any public media leader would, in that I'm thinking about finances and stability. I'm thinking about bold content creation. I am thinking about growth and how we do things, and how we hold institutions accountable, how we're in certain areas, how we are covering the arts and culture and community, how we are uplifting music of local artists in ways that others are not, right? I'm thinking about all those things. And any person who came to this role should have been thinking about those same things. I also have a lived experience as who I am, as a working mom, as a Black mom, as a Black media leader. Like, all those things help me come to the table and think about how I lead with compassion and empathy. Helps me think about how I think about all corners of the community and what voices we're getting on the air. I remember one time, again, we were covering a story, and my lead editor on Morning Edition, it was kind of like, okay, check, we've done that story. We talked to this politician, we're done. And I was like, oh, no, we are far from done. It was about immigration and immigration status in this country back in 2018, 2019 with TPS. And yes, sure, we talked to a politician that was on one side of that vote or the other. I can't remember exactly who. But the story wasn't over for me. And to me, a good leader thinks about, how else can we tell that story? What voice have we not heard from yet? Who is experiencing this story? Who is affected by this story? And so you really there's not one way to tell a story. I think perspective makes a difference in everything. Some people may call it DEI. Some people may call it, making sure we have diverse voices. We know what happens when we use that label and how that gets misconstrued. What I would say, this is about representation, and this is about hearing all voices to all sides of a story. And I think, me being a working woman, Black woman leader at the table, allows me to emphasize that even more with my teams and in the community.
Thank you, Kenya. We'll be back in just a moment. We're on track with Louisville Public Media.
Hi, I'm Richard Karn, and you may have seen me on TV talking about the world's #1 expandable garden hose. Well, the brand new Pocket Hose Copperhead with Pocket Pivot is here, and it's a total game changer. Old-fashioned hoses get kinks and creases at the spigot, but the Copperhead's Pocket Pivot swivels 360 degrees for full water flow and freedom to water with ease all around your home. When you're all done, this rust-proof anti-burst hose shrinks back down to pocket size for effortless handling and tidy storage. Plus, your super light and ultra-durable Pocket Hose Copperhead is backed with a 10-year warranty. What could be better than that? I'll tell you what, an exciting exclusive offer just for you. For a limited time, you can get a free Pocket Pivot and their 10-pattern sprayer with the purchase of any size Copperhead hose. Just text WATER to 64,000. That's WATER to 64,000 for your 2 free gifts with purchase. WATER to 64,000.
By texting 64,000, you agree to receive recurring automated marketing messages from Pocket Hose. Message and data rates may apply. No purchase required. Terms apply. Available at pockethose.com/terms.
Welcome back to On Track. I'm Aisha Jaffer, and our guest today is LPM's new president and CEO, Kenya Young. And just a quick reminder here that On Track is, of course, produced by LPM, but LPM executive leadership, including Kenya, did not have input on the questions we're asking in this conversation. So I want to jump right into the issues with federal funding for public media. The U.S. House of Representatives recently passed a rescissions package that would eliminate $1.1 billion in funding for public media. And this is funding that was already approved for the next 2 years, funding that organizations have already included in their budgets. How can funding that's already been approved be taken back? How does that work?
Yeah, that's right. And I think that's really good to think about the clarity, because there are actually several different moves to try to eliminate the funding or restrict the funding for public media, for NPR, for PBS, and for the stations. And so this one particularly is a bill that has been introduced, as you call it, rescission, which claws back, right? So Congress approved it at one point, and we were for corporate for public broadcasting. It's intentional that the funds are 2 years in advance to help with planning, just so the planning's not so volatile in the budgets, right? So this has been in place for a while, in that this is the way in FY25, we're already secured with FY26 and FY27 funding so that we can plan accordingly. You can imagine if you're running an organization and don't have those measures and you're thinking ahead. So this is the way it's been for years, that's set up, and it was approved by Congress in this way. The money is allocated. It's sitting in Treasury, ready to be distributed to us. And because it has not made its way over to CPB yet, or made its way to us, there's this moment while it's still sitting in Treasury that they're trying to put in the bill to say, let's go get it back. It is not, while it's been allocated and approved, it's not been sent yet. So if you think of it in that kind of way, but of course it would take an act of Congress to unapprove it, let's say, is what's basically happening, and say, yes, we approved this at one point. We are now going to approve taking it back. That's really what, in layman's terms, kind of what this boils down to. So what we have had happen is last week, there's a bill on the floor, H.R. 4. The House did approve it by a very slim margin. I believe it was 214 to 212. And that gives me a little bit of hope, but that does mean it moves on to the Senate floor, and now Senate has to approve or not approve. And if they don't approve, that one particular bill dies on the floor, and we will still have our FY26, FY24 funding. I will reiterate that as most companies, our FY26 is done and bagged. And so it would mean within the next 3 weeks going to the mat and thinking about how we change our budget for just July 1. Mm-hmm. So it's that crucial in that way. Well, actually, the vote would happen after July 1. So we'd be amending a budget that we are actually currently in the year of. You can imagine the chaos that kind of creates. And so this is what we're facing. But honestly, this is what we're facing with this one bill. as we've been putting it and talking to other station leaders, this is a marathon, not a sprint. There are other ways. There's still reconciliation and appropriations with the budget that we are thinking for forward thinking. So, right, we're thinking there's a lot. There's what's right in front of us with FY26 and 27. That's completely different than thinking about current budgets and whether it's included in current budgets or not when we're thinking about FY28 and beyond. So, the federal funding fight is very real, and it doesn't just begin or end with this. As we also know, there was an executive order that was put out even before this happened. That executive order really didn't hold much weight because it was inaccurate as far as how the CPB funds work with NPR and with stations. And so, but what it tells you is that it's coming at all angles, whether it's an EO, whether it's rescission, whether it's appropriations, and there's probably other ways out there. I don't even know, quite honestly, right? Congressionally, that's what we're facing in the federal funding space.
But really, with this bill, if it passes through the Senate, what happens? Is that it, or is the rescission done, or is there still ways we can block change or overturn that ruling?
Well, there's always ways that we're going to look at, and we're working very closely with NPR and NPR leadership for what our options are afterwards. But if this bill passes, particularly for FY26 and FY27, each station is really going to have to think about their budgets and what's coming out of our budgets. For LPM, I believe that our amount is about 4.5% that we would have to think about. Obviously, that's a lot for us to think about in this moment. It's not talking out of turn to say that LPM has had some financial headwinds over the past year and had to take some action based on that. So we certainly would need to look at what that means for our budget, and particularly FY27 as we think about reforecasting and rebudgeting. Where it really hurts is those stations that are in the larger amount, 30%, 40%, 50% of their programming and of their operational budget is from their CPB. These are much smaller stations. We're talking about our stations in the southern part of the state, in Murray, that is thinking about they are the trigger for the emergency alert system in that area. There are much smaller stations in Alaska and in Utah. Really, across the nation are rural stations that are in this category where they are the only station in the area. So, so much of the argument from the congressional hearing was about accessibility, and the media landscape has changed and people can get their news anywhere. That's true for Louisville. That's true for New York and LA. It's just not true for many of the rural stations out there. This is still the only way that they can access news, but also arts and culture program. There are many stations out there that actually are not news stations, which is some of the buzz, the debate around why to take the funding away. This is about the community stations and the emergency alert system. So what really concerns me, quite honestly, of course, I'm concerned about our budget. Of course, I'm concerned about what we're able to do here in LPM and how it affects us in our community. I'm really concerned, as someone who's been in public media for years, about these stations that where they're the only ones there. They're already so resource strapped, and to get hit with their federal funding, some stations will have to go dark. They will just not exist.
So I want to ask, because you talked about it, that, you've been with other station leaders around the nation talking about what to do. What have those conversations been like? What are you talking about as possible solutions?
Yeah, there's so much that's kind of when the shoe drops, it's not like just the other shoe drops. There's a lot of shoes that we're looking at. Is the blue one going to? Is the red one going to? Is the yellow one going to? What's going to happen here? Because we're in a position where it means different things for different people. When I was at New York Public Radio, we are also a distributor, and we distribute shows to the stations. We were thinking at that point, what does this mean for who we are distributing to? Do we change our model about how we distribute to stations in order to help stations? NPR's thinking about that, obviously. So there is, I will say, a groundswell within public media and the leaders that we have about how we are going to assist and help each other. We realize this is not just about our own station. This is about the system writ large. And there is a growing concern about what we are going to do for each other, to help each other, to sustain the public media system.
And real quick, before I let you go, where can people, if they're listening, keep on track with this issue?
Absolutely. We're regularly reporting on it, but protectmypublicmedia.org, protectmypublicmedia.org is a place where all of this, they're keeping it updated in real time and letting you know what's happening minute by minute.
Kenya Young is the new president and CEO of Louisville Public Media. Kenya, thank you for joining us today on Track.
Thank you so much for bringing me downstairs. I'm loving it here in this studio.
On Track is a production of Louisville Public Media. The On Track production team includes Michelle Tyreen Johnson, Alex Biscardi, and Laura Ellis. Our music is by Kojin Toshiro. If you're just tuning in and you want to hear the full show, you can find it now at LouisvilleOnTrack.org or in your favorite podcast app. I'm Aisha Jaffer, and remember, being kind is free. That's the start of community. Until next time, you're on Track with Louisville Public Media.
Welcome to It Takes Energy, presented by Energy Transfer, where we talk all things oil and natural gas. Oil and gas drive our economy, ensure our country's security, and open pathways to brighter futures. What do you know about oil and natural gas? You likely associate them with running your car or heating your home. But these two natural resources fuel so much more than that. More than 6,000 consumer products that we rely on every day are made using oil and gas. Before you even step out the door in the morning, you've already used more products made possible because of oil and gas than you realize. From the toothpaste you brush your teeth with, the soap you washed your face with, and the sheets you slept on. Not to mention your makeup, contact lenses, clothes, and shoes. Oil and gas are vital parts of all these products and so many more. Look around and you'll see the essential role oil and gas plays in our lives. Our world needs oil and gas, and people rely on us to deliver it. To learn more, visit energytransfer.com.
Hi, I'm Richard Karn, and you may have seen me on TV talking about the world's #1 expandable garden hose. Well, the brand new Pocket Hose Copperhead with Pocket Pivot is here, and it's a total game changer. Old-fashioned hoses get kinks and creases at the spigot, but the Copperhead's Pocket Pivot swivels 360 degrees for full water flow and freedom to water with ease all around your home. When you're all done, this rust-proof anti-burst hose shrinks back down to pocket size for effortless handling and tidy storage. Plus, your super light and ultra-durable Pocket Hose Copperhead is backed with a 10-year warranty. What could be better than that? I'll tell you what, an exciting radio-exclusive offer just for you. For a limited time, you can get a free Pocket Pivot and their 10-pattern sprayer with the purchase of any size Copperhead hose. Just text WATER to 64,000. That's WATER to 64,000 for your 2 free gifts with purchase. WATER to 64,000.
By texting 64,000, you agree to receive recurring automated marketing messages from Pocket Hose. Message and data rates may apply. No purchase required. Terms apply. Available at pockethose.com/terms.